You don't you don't give up your education for some guy who won't even talk to you, Peaches said. And she didn't go up to the house or nothing. She just put a letter in the window of Duke's place saying that she was going to be there and waiting for Mack to come to see her. The letter was printed on a big cardboard. It wasn't anything fancy either. Mack, I'm home from school. I'm here at Duke's barbershop every day, and I'm waiting for you to tell you how much I love you, Kitty. Now, that letter seemed strange at first because it was written to Mack, but it was never sent to him. It was also strange to put the letter in the window where everybody could see it. That was getting the whole block in your business. People were divided in their thinking. Some people felt that maybe there was something wrong with Kitty, too. Earl said that sometimes love drove people crazy, but Sadie, Peach's mama, said that the girl was just too young to know better. Of course, she didn't say it in front of Kitty's mama, who was really upset about the whole thing. Kitty's father even demanded that she go back to school at once, but Kitty said she wasn't going to go, even if it meant she had to move out and be homeless. We all knew that Duke wouldn't let her be on the street. Everybody was busting to tell Mack about Kitty sitting in Duke's place every day, waiting for him to come down. The first thing that happened was that his mother came by and told Kitty that she was wasting her time. "You're such a sweet girl," Mrs. McCormick said, "but he's so despondent he doesn't want to do anything." "That's his problem," Kitty said. "My problem is staying here waiting for him." A guidance counselor came by and gave Kitty her sternest voice and shook several of her fingers at her. But Kitty wouldn't budge, and as far as the school was concerned, it was a matter of were they going to suspend Kitty or let her finish and go on to college. Time went by, and it was the 3rd of March when Max showed up at Duke's place. It was a bitterly cold day, worsened by the wind that lifted the papers along the block and sent them flying across the Malcolm X Boulevard. By this time, Duke had gotten used to having Kitty there, and they were sitting and chatting when the door opened and Mack came in. He was on crutches. "Well, look who's here," Duke said. "Do you want tea?" Kitty asked. Mack nodded, and Kitty filled the little kettle that Duke kept under the counter. Duke said he was going down the street to get some breakfast. "I'll be back in an hour or so," he said, glancing at Mack. "So what is this all about?" Mack asked when they were alone. "I love you, and I'm going to take care of you," Kitty said. "And I don't mind waiting until you let me." "I don't need you to take care of me," Mack came back. "Honey, you look pitiful." Kitty centered the pot on the burner. "That's my problem," Mack said, "not yours." "Then how come I'm the one that's hurting so much inside?" Kitty asked him. "How come I spend so much time crying myself to sleep if it's just your problem?" Mack was cool. He had his head to one side the way he did sometimes and narrowed his eyes. "You need to go back to school." "Don't tell me what to do," Kitty said. "When I first told you and everybody else in school that I was loving you, I didn't need anyone to tell me how to do it, or didn't you notice?" Mack sat down on one of the stairs against the wall for the customers. Kitty brought him the tea and sat next to him. He did look pitiful. His face was thin and his skin was ashy. Kitty asked him how he was doing. "I'm getting by," he said. "You want to go out sometime?" "No. Let me tell you what I want to do." Mack's voice rose. "I want to lead my life the way I want to lead it without you or anybody else telling me what I need to do." "That's pretty clear, isn't it? I guess that's supposed to chump me off, right?" "Something like that," Mack said. "Well, I guess it does it in a way," Kitty said. "But guess what? I'm going to be here tomorrow, and I'll be waiting for you." Kitty's eyes watered over for a minute, and she wiped them quietly and then lifted her face to Mack's. Her face, as young and brown and pretty as any Mack had ever seen. That face looking into his touched him again with its soft boldness and the eyes that searched his so intently. Mack had a hard answer for her, but it choked him as he tried to get it out. He made a noise, something between a grunt and a croak, then stood quickly. He grabbed the crutches, knocking the teacup over. "I'll get it," Kitty said. Mack swung around, and in a moment he was back on the block heading for his own path. When Duke came back, Kitty had picked up the teacup. Duke looked at her and tried to read what happened without asking. Finally, his curiosity got the better of him, and he did ask. "Not much," she said softly, "not much." Staying out of school for a week, even 2 weeks, was still within the sanity range. But when a month passed and Kitty still hadn't gone to class, the school began to threaten her parents. Duke knew some people on the school board, and smoothed things over a bit. But he told Kitty that something had to break soon. Mack hadn't been back to the shop, but a funny thing happened. People were calling him and telling him that he had to do something to help Kitty. It was on the 9th of March, a Monday, when Duke and Kitty found that Mack sitting on the steps of the barber shop when they arrived. Mack was wearing an old army overcoat, and Duke noticed that he didn't have his crutches with him. "You okay, boy?" Duke said. "No." Kitty pushed in front of Duke and knelt next to Mack. "It's cold out here," she said. "Let's go inside." Duke watched them go inside the barber shop and shook his head. He loved his granddaughter and respected her, but he was worried, more than worried, even afraid. Inside the barber shop, Kitty helped Mack to one of the barber chairs. "Pee-wee called last night and said you were getting messed around over this thing and needed my help," Mack said. "And you came down to help me." Kitty put her fingertips against Mack's cheek. "I came down full of big things to say." Mack looked away. "I got this little temporary foot they gave me. It's strapped onto my leg under my pants. I was going to walk in here and be the man and talk a lot of good-doing stuff to you." "Run it, Mack." Kitty took his hand. "You talk all the good-doing stuff, and I'll listen to you." "Kitty, I fell 3 times on the way over here." The tears flooded from Mack's eyes onto his cheeks. "I'm being a big man trying to help you, and I can't walk 2 lousy blocks. I can't be a man to you. I just can't." His sobs filled the barber shop. Outside, the crosstown bus hissed past on the wet street. Earl was backing his van into a narrow parking spot, and brothers and sisters, already late for work, rushed toward the subway station on the boulevard. "But you got here," Kitty said, "down 2 lousy blocks, even though you feel like you want to give up, and even though your pride doesn't want you to give in, even a little, to being somebody that needs something or someone. You made it anyway. How much man does a girl need?" "Kitty, I don't know what to do with myself." "Me neither," Kitty said. She slipped her arm under Mack's. "I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but I know if we're together, we're going to make something good happen, 'cause we are 2 stubborn people. Now you have to admit that, right?" "Baby, you need a man that's—" Mack shook his head. Kitty climbed up on the barber chair and put her head on his chest. "Tell me what kind of man I need." Mack struggled with the words, and they didn't come right, no matter how he turned them. Kitty curled up against him. "Kitty, you're not even listening," Mack said. "Yeah," Kitty answered, "something like that."